Hello everybody, this is a lecture on physical and chemical changes. Write please, physical and chemical changes. So, now in our everyday lives, we observe many changes like the ripening of fruits, like the melting of snow on mountain peaks, like the formation of curd from milk. All of these are changes. Now, in chemistry, changes are classified into two types. Changes are of two types. Two types. The physical changes and the chemical changes. And chemical changes. Now, these changes are very important in this class of class 8. Now, physical changes we can also call natural changes, and chemical changes we can call man-made changes or irreversible changes. The melting of the formation of curd from milk is a chemical change and this is a man-made change. It cannot be done automatically. Alright? So chemical now, what is a physical change you may ask? A physical change is a change, please note down, a physical change is a change in which no new substance is a temporary change in which no new substance is formed, no new substance is formed with a chemical composition same, with a chemical composition which is the same, So, a physical change is a temporary change in which no new substance is formed with a chemical composition which is the same as the original substance. So, this is called a physical change. Now, there are many examples of physical changes. A physical change, the examples are like melting of wax, condensation of water. Now, why is condensation of water a physical change? Because when water is condensed, it can again be evaporated or it can again be boiled to form vapor or steam. So, it can be reversed. But in the case of chemical changes like ripening of fruits, formation of curd from milk. Curd cannot be changed back to milk, so it's a chemical change. Now let us come on to the definition of the chemical change. I'll do this with pink. Now, a chemical change is a permanent change in which a new substance is formed with a different chemical and physical composition compared to the original substance. So this is a chemical change. So what is a chemical change? A chemical change is a permanent change in which a new substance is formed with a different chemical and physical composition compared to the original substance. Now examples of chemical changes are, I just told you, ripening of fruits and formation of curd from milk, burning of wood, burning of paper. These are all chemical changes because they cannot be reversed by reversing the conditions. Now there are some changes called energy changes. Now energy changes are the changes in which energy is involved, and these are present in both physical and chemical changes. Now in physical changes, the energy is used to change the state. Now energy changes in a physical change. Energy changes in a physical change include dissolving a substance in a liquid, dissolving a substance in a liquid, and change of state, These are energy changes in a physical change. Got it? So now let me explain energy changes in a physical change with change of state. Now we know that matter expands on heating and contracts on cooling. Now let's suppose ice is present. Ice is a solid form of water. Now ice is made up of water molecules, but they are in solid form. Yes? Now when the ice is heated, we have studied this in matter in chemistry, that when we heat it, the intermolecular spaces expand and the intermolecular force of attraction weakens. That's why the volume increases, and eventually at some point of heating, the solid state of water changes into the liquid state of water changes from solid into liquid. Now this is a physical change. This is an example of energy change in a physical change, because ice is made up of water and the liquid form of water is also water. Get it? So these are energy changes in the physical change. Now let's further heat the liquid form of water. Now we see if we further heat it, the intermolecular spaces will increase to such an extent, and the intermolecular force will decrease to such an extent on further heating, that the liquid will change to gas, that is water vapor in the case of water. And if we cool all of this, the intermolecular spaces will decrease and the intermolecular force will increase, and eventually all the states will lead back to the solid state of water. So these are examples of energy changes in a physical change. Involve dissolving a substance in liquid and change of state. Okay. Now we are coming to energy changes in a chemical change. So energy changes. Now, sorry, I'm waiting on thing. Now, we know that atoms rearrange themselves to form new substances during a chemical change. Now we know that atoms rearrange themselves to form new substances during chemical change. Now to rearrange these, a lot of energy must be required. Now this is energy change in a chemical change. This requires a lot of energy. Now, we are coming to types of chemical changes also. If the energy is heat energy and it is absorbed, the given change is an endothermic change. Endothermic change, and if the heat is evolutionized, that is evolutionized, then the given change is called an exothermic change. Exothermic change. Now these are examples of energy changes in a chemical change. Now let us come to characteristics of physical and chemical changes. Alright. Now physical now let's come to the characteristics of physical and chemical changes. I'll be using red this time. No, not red. Let's use pink. Let's go to a new page. Now we will first start with characteristics of physical change. We will only be discussing 3 or 4 as they are very easy. Characteristics of physical change are: firstly, from the definition itself you can get it. Alright, from the definition, a physical change is a temporary change in which no new substance is formed. Alright, so this is one point of the physical change characteristics. The change is temporary and no new substance is formed. And no new substance is formed. Oh, now let's go back to the definition again. With a chemical composition which is the same as the original substance, so we can write there is no alteration in the chemical composition of the original substance. In the chemical composition of the original substance, right? Now the third point. Now this is not in the definition, but it is very important as it can be a trick question. Now we have studied the change of state. Yes. Now the change of state which we have discussed are all physical changes. So one point may be there may be a change in state, shape and size of the substance. When we heated the ice cube which was made up of water, it changed into liquid. So change of state and change of size and change of shape. It went from a complete cube to a 2D shape, a liquid. So there may be a change of shape, state and size. So these were the 3 characteristics of physical changes, important. Now let us come to the characteristics of chemical changes. Now, chemical changes. Let us come to the characteristics of chemical changes. Now, characteristics of chemical changes. Now let's go to the definition of chemical changes. So, a chemical change is a permanent change in which a new substance is formed. 1 point. The change is permanent and irreversible. Yes, that's a point. Irreversible. And the second point is also in the definition, in which a new substance is formed with a different chemical and physical composition as compared to the original substance. A new substance is formed with a different chemical composition from the original substance. From the original substance. Second point. Now, this is not in a definition of chemical changes, but we will discuss. Now, this is in the energy changes. Now, we will write energy changes are usually observed in chemical changes. Now we have just discussed this. We know that the atoms rearrange themselves to form new substances during a chemical change. This requires a lot of energy. Okay. Now, if the chemical change if the required energy is, we will write the same thing, endothermic change, and that change, exothermic change. If the energy change is in heat energy, then the change is called an endothermic change. And endothermic, and if this heat energy is generated or it is evolutionized, it is called an exothermic change. And if the heat energy is absorbed, it is called an endothermic change. So these were the 3 points of characteristics of chemical changes. Alright, now there is one more topic which is not discussed in the chapter that much, but it is important. This is the law of conservation of mass. Now, what is the law of conservation of mass? The law of conservation of mass states that matter is neither created nor destroyed during a chemical change or a chemical reaction. Alright. For example, in the chemical reaction of magnesium and oxygen, where magnesium burns in oxygen, the total mass of the magnesium and oxygen in the reactants category is equal to the total mass of the magnesium oxide produced. Alright, let me just write it. The law of conservation. This is similar to the law of conservation of energy, which you will study in physics. States that matter is neither created nor destroyed during a chemical change or a chemical reaction. I'll write reaction/change. Alright, this was law of conservation of mass. Now let me give you an example. Now in this reaction, 2 Mg plus O2, 2 MgO, this reaction, the total mass of magnesium plus oxygen is equal to the total mass of magnesium Mg, I am writing this in short form, magnesium oxide produced. So by this we come to the end of the chapter. Thank you for watching.